Welcome to the Eye on Annapolis Local Business Spotlight. There are thousands of locally owned businesses in the area, some small and some large. Some you may know and others you don't. But one thing they all have in common is a great story, and we want to share it with you. Join us every Saturday as we talk to the founders, the owners, and the managers of local businesses you have come to know and love, and those you will come to know and love. Now here's your host, John Frenay, with this week's Local Business Spotlight.
You know, you never give up an opportunity to go to 49 West, and I'll tell you, I'm here in the back room, which is a great place to record a podcast, but it's even a better place to watch jazz on the, on the weekends, I got to say. We are here today with four ladies who are on a mission. We're here with three ladies who are on a mission because my math is off. As we all look around looking for that mysterious fourth lady. But we're here with Susan, Nina, and Terri, who are with Save Our Trees. And when Susan reached out to me probably about 4 weeks ago, I got to admit, initially I was like, oh gosh, another environmental organization. Because there are so many of them. And I mean, I don't mean to diss them, but I mean, everybody, there's a lot of overlap and everything else. Mm-hmm. But then as I started to look into it, I'm like, okay, these guys are different. You know, it's not you're not the lay down in front of the bulldozer crowd.
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, okay. You know, you're just young. There's time. There's time. But the website that you want to go see, and we'll mention this a couple times throughout, but it's saveourtreestogether.org. And I guess, Susan, you're probably the best one to lead off is explain what Save Our Trees is all about.
It's funny how things evolve. A couple of years ago, I went to Brian, who he and his wife own, 49 West here. And because I run a networking event here weekly, was in our 11th year.
That's to just show up and
just show up. It's a networking group. But because we had that relationship, and because he is working in the mayor's office so closely with the mayor, I went to him and I said, Brian, I'm 70. This is a couple of years ago, and I said, I am looking for something that I can do within the city that will make a difference to my community. And he just looked at me straight in the face, and he said, Save Our Trees. And it's funny, I had just been to the Annapolis Film Festival and had seen the movie The Biggest Little Farm.
Sure.
It really impacted me.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, and a couple of other things where I was beginning to feel like, okay, this could be great, but I don't even know what to do with it. So fast forward 2 years. It took me 2 years to sit on that. And last year, I went to the Annapolis Film Festival. I'm their volunteer team leader. And I'm also their venue manager at an event that happens at Ram's Head.
Okay.
And it's where it's called Coffee Talks. And in the morning, we get to sit and listen to different industry people talk. So one of the guests who came in was Ginger Woolrich. And Ginger is so there's 6 of us at Save Our Trees. But she was the spark that lit the match that got this going with me. In talking with her, I discovered she was an author of a book. Help me out, Nina, with the proper title.
Essential Native Trees and Shrubs for the Eastern
United
U.S.
States, yeah. And I looked at her, and within like 2 minutes, I said, oh my God, I've been asked to save our trees. We have to talk. She says, okay, let's do it. So we made a date a couple days later to get together for coffee. And I said, I have an idea. I'm going to see if our community cares. And I posted for the first time ever on Nextdoor. And within 2 days, we had over 100 people respond. Yes, I see it. I want to help. Yes. So when we met for coffee, basically before I even walked in the door, I said, we're really screwed here because we have 100 people now who have said, yeah, I'm interested. And I said, so we have to do something. What are we going to do, right? So I reached out to Brian. And
Brian and Sarah.
Yeah, Brian and Sarah, exactly. And so he made an arrangement, and we met here at 49 West, and he brought in 3 people from the city, and it was going to be Ginger and I. Except things happen fast if you're part of Save Our Trees. Because one of the people who reached out was Nina from next door, and Nina had been working over at, Terri. I'm looking at Nina.
Terri.
It's like Terri. Terri had been working over at Quiet Waters Park already doing this.
Oh,
and
wow,
she
okay.
said, let's meet for a coffee. So we met for a coffee and went, oh my God, Mother Nature is providing. So we show up and for our meeting with the city, and Ginger says, I'm bringing my friend Nina. And so with that, we had 4 of our initial 6 that started this.
That's right. Now, how did you? Okay, so you're focused on ivy and invasive vines. How did you narrow that down from save our trees as opposed to planting trees? I guess
That's a really good question.
I mean that would
So-
save our trees. Okay, trees will die and stuff like that. We do know that, but I mean, it makes sense. Okay, let's plant some saplings, and in 40 years they're going to be great.
So for me, it was walking around Quiet Waters Park that really got me focused on this particular issue. Because if you look at what the English ivy is doing to trees over time, it's killing the mature trees. So it didn't make sense to me that we were spending all this money and resource on planting young trees and letting our old canopy trees die. And the second thing, I'll be honest, is getting rid of the ivy on trees is something we can really do and have an immediate impact. It's really very satisfying to see these trees. It's almost like they're breathing life again after you've taken the ivy off.
Well, I mean, I know ivy is so horrible for brick facades and homes, and because it gets in there and it crumbles and eats and everything else. Does it have that same effect on trees?
It does in part. I mean, it's clinging on to the bark, and that's why we don't. It can introduce disease and rot, etc. But in fact, we don't actually cut all the ivy out of the tree. What we do is sever the connection from the roots. That we pull the roots out at the bottom and create an ivy-free zone known as the ring of life, so that the ivy up high in the trees is not receiving any nutrients or water, and then ultimately dies and falls off the tree slowly, so that we're not ripping the bark up as we proceed, to free the tree.
Okay, so you're not climbing the trees and
We're not.
stripping
Not
them.
climbing the trees, and it would take forever to do one tree that way as well.
Right.
And one additional point is that ivy on the ground is bad because it doesn't really stabilize the soil that well. It's not native. It doesn't provide habitat, etc. But ivy up in the trees is when it matures. So when it climbs up the tree, it then produces all these purplish berries that birds will eat and then disseminate all over the place. Doesn't really respect
And
boundaries.
it just perpetuates the problem.
And it does. And even I've cleared most of my yard of ivy, but every year I'm still pulling out young
Sprouts.
sprigs.
Wow. How many trees do we lose to ivy? I mean, I get that it strangles them, if you will.
But it doesn't really strangle them per se, because that kind of implies that they've got throats and air is going up and down them.
Okay.
But so it's not literally a strangling. But what it does, it creates conditions that make it hard for the tree to survive. Like when you get a whole lot of ivy up in the canopy, and we have these intense windstorms as we do now with climate change, it creates a sail area so that the tree itself is pushed. There's more force against the tree to fall over because of all the ivy mass that's.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes
does,
sense to
and
me.
then
So-
also the weight of the ivy itself. Once it gets up into trees and really proliferates, it can be really heavy.
Well, is it sort of like we'll say a heart disease, like where you're getting plaque buildup in your things, and it's cutting off some of the is that a fairly decent analogy where it's cutting off some of the nutrients to the tree?
Well, it's competing for nutrients
Right.
Okay.
at
Yeah.
the base because
Yeah.
it's sucking nutrients up the vines to
Yeah.
feed all
To
the
feed itself.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And
And,
it will-
and water too. In a dry year, that could make a difference.
And it won't die off naturally, or will it?
No, it seems to have incredible longevity.
Yeah, it does. So, but your question about why ivy, because you're right, invasives are a problem across the country. There are all kinds of invasives that people are trying to tackle. It's just that for us, this concept of saving our trees is just so important. And this area is just terrible. If you drive down out towards Severna Park, or if you go over to Pal or Truxton, the majority of trees are at risk. And they, our tree canopy, people love trees. Our tree canopy is part of why we
We also love development.
And we love development, that's very true. But they can coexist. They really can.
If done right.
Yeah, if done right, exactly.
And may I just say, there is no development. People don't want to live in a concrete jungle. People want to live in a developed area with trees,
Right.
and they will pay for that.
Oh, sure, certainly.
And they want the privacy, and they want the coolness, they want the birds, they want everything that the trees bring. So it has to coexist, otherwise the property's devalued.
Right.
absolutely right. I mean, you do, but it's, I know Annapolis, the city, has a great program as far as development goes, and the 100%, and we've got to make sure that we're keeping our canopy where it was. And I think that really sort of got started under Ellen Moyer's administration.
Yeah.
And to increase the canopy.
Yeah, and I mean, and the county needs to catch up. I mean, there is some work to do there as well. But so you guys are going out and actually walking the walk.
Yeah.
We are.
And then take the analogy, and you're talking the talk too, I guess.
Yeah.
And we're bringing the clippers.
And we're bringing the
So, okay, so we have an event. So what do I expect if I come out and hang out with you guys for a Saturday or a Sunday up at Truxton or Quiet Waters or wherever we're cutting ivy and vines off of trees? What happens there?
So we schedule the events probably at least once a month. We have been having them even more often. And we gather volunteers through various methods of emailing and Nextdoor Eastport, and now we have our website.
And also
by
just person to person.
word of mouth. And we've also connected with a lot of the other environmental organizations, including the Anne Arundel County Weed Warriors now. We're working with them as well. You can come for a couple of hours or stay as long as you like. We teach people how to cut the ivy properly to make sure that it's done in a way that's sustainable and the ivy doesn't grow back too fast. And it's actually quite a bit of fun. You meet a lot of new people when you're out there. And we've had a lot of repeat volunteers, and I think we have over 100 people now that are on our volunteer list. And if you think about it, I mean, we had people come out when it was raining, snowing, 90 degrees. I mean, people are really interested in doing something about this problem, which has been really, really wonderful.
And it's very cathartic.
Yeah, I imagine. Okay, so and you said you're just cutting off on the bottom part of the tree. I mean, if I've got an ivy tree in my backyard, and you're not going to bring the team out to do my tree. I mean, what do I do? What's my process? How much do I cut off? And first we got to figure out how to cut off. We talked to you guys and figure out how to cut it off, because
it all depends in part on ivy. People are kind of astonished at this, but ivy stems can get up to 5 inches in diameter, maybe more. I mean, so it can be like a young tree actually climbing up the
outside of the big tree.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so in that case, you're going to probably need either a handsaw or they make these tiny chainsaws
Right.
with 4-inch chains, and I have one, and it's really fun.
Also cathartic, right?
Also very cathartic, as long as you keep your fingers and toes away. So basically, we cut about 4 feet up and try to clear the tree downward, and if you can, try to extract the roots from the ground. With something that's got a 4-inch or 5-inch caliper, you're not going to be able to pull the roots out.
Right.
But you can just cut the ivy all the way around the tree, pull it off as long as you're not hurting the bark. Some trees have shaggy bark, and they might be more susceptible to bark pulling off, whereas other trees, it's a clean pull, and there's no problem. So you do that, and you pull out the roots, and then go on to the next tree.
Okay. And
so
then
it actually doesn't take that long, unless there's some trees that are completely encased in vines, and they take a lot longer because you have to be careful not to injure the tree.
And how long till the ivy goes back?
Oh, it'll start growing back next year, but in this case, what you've done is you've really slowed its growth, and you're killing all the stuff up high where the berries are and where it's been compromised.
So they're not getting berries up there. The birds aren't able to eat them and poop them out all over the place to propagate them.
Yeah, exactly.
And when the stiff winds come, they may release them, I would imagine.
And you can go, again, to our website at saveourtreestogether.org, and we have a video there of we have 2 videos there of events, and they can see there how to cut the ivy as well.
Okay.
And one of the things I think we want to emphasize too is the earlier you catch it, the better.
Yeah.
Because when we're working in Truxton, some of those trees took us an hour to get all the ivy off of them because it was so encased. Some of these huge old canopy trees. Mm-hmm. But if you catch it early, when you see the first sprouts starting up especially if it's in your yard or in your neighbor's yard, it's so easy to pull it out at that point.
Have you guys spoken with public works peoples? I mean, with the city. I mean, these are you mentioned, Terry, that that had been happening so long.
Yeah, right.
And I've got to imagine, and I don't mean to fault Public Works or anything
Yeah.
like that, because who knows? But these guys are probably out there passing these trees hundreds of times
Yeah, that's
a
right.
week. Is that something that the cities and the municipalities and the government should be concerned about?
Yes. So one of our three legs of our mission, because we act, educate, and advocate, and the third leg is advocate. And what we really want to start doing, we haven't had a time yet to really do this. We've less than a year in now, but is to really work with the city, the county, and even the state to encourage funding for public workers to have time to really work at this problem. Because you're right, they're out there all the time, and they would have access to the trees and
And the
could be
tools.
trained, and the tools, right?
And I'd imagine too that it's just a lot of it is probably just an awareness.
Exactly.
Going into your education thing, because
Yeah.
how many times do we pass this tree and just not even look
Not
at
even
it,
notice
to
it.
think about it, and not
And you-
notice it? Where if you're in tune to it, it's like, oh gosh, let me pull over, put my little blinkers on, and zip, 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 and
So we have a saying, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so that's a big part of our mission, is to make sure everybody sees it.
And the other,
People do respond once they know.
yeah, that's so true. And
I
it's
think
not
you're right.
just.
I know I'm going to after this. I know I'm going to be.
I'm sorry for the rest of your life. You have seen it. You cannot unsee it. Sorry.
But not really.
That's funny. Well, how effective have you been? Okay, it took you 2 years to what's the word? What's the
To let the idea perk.
yeah.
But it wasn't even that idea. It was just how to save the trees.
Yeah.
And she narrowed in on this
Right.
Yeah.
with Ginger.
Yeah.
Right. Now, how successful have you been? Have you saved any trees?
All right, Terry, what's our total so far that we've been able to?
Over 700 trees.
Over
that we've
700.
saved.
741.
Yeah. And that's just what we've been able to count. So when we do events, we ask the volunteers to sign out, and then to sign out how many trees they actually saved. And one thing that we do at our events is we tie a ribbon around every tree we've saved. So if you go to Truxton Park and you walk through that park, you're going to see trees all over the place that are tied with yellow ribbons.
Or
And-
other colors.
Or other colors, yeah. But right now, that's the only one I can afford, is the yellow ribbons.
I just figured it was like Tony Orlando
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
park.
of
or,
course, yeah.
But no. To be honest with you, all jokes aside, when I have noticed them,
Okay.
Oh, good.
and I just assumed the total opposite of what you're doing. I assumed that they were diseased or dead,
Oh,
and
and
they
they
were,
were-
and
oh,
they,
no,
they were
that's-
flagged for removal.
Okay. All right. No, we have
We better
the-
put up a sign.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We want people to say what's happening here.
What is that flag about?
What is it about? And it's, we just tie the ribbon around the tree. To me, it was the first thought that I had. It was like, number one, if people don't see the work that was done there, they won't know that it's been done. And if they don't see that the work's been done, they won't know there's a problem. It is highly impactful. So it's been great. But can I just step back for a minute to the city and the municipal workers and all of that?
Sure.
So I also believe that we are the people. We the people, we are the people. So if we are not making noise, and I'm chief noisemaker. These girls have the smarts about trees and all that stuff, but I'm chief noisemaker. And if we the people don't make it known that we are concerned about this, the money will not be funded for it.
Oh, sure.
So, for example, we know that we have a wonderful arborist in the City of Annapolis, but he's a committee of one. So we're here just to show the world, okay, maybe we need to stop asking what we can get them to do for us, and instead we'll just do the whole John Kennedy thing and step up and say, what can we do as citizens of this town and community?
Well, why shouldn't we?
Why shouldn't we what?
Why shouldn't we?
Step up?
Yeah,
Let me tell you, stepping up and doing this has been the most fun I think I've ever had. I've made more new friends. I am not bored. I mean, for anybody like me, who's retired and, you want to make new friends, be part of your community, come out and cut some ivy with us.
I talked to so many people that have retired, and they're like, I don't, or getting close to it.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know what to do.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
The needs are huge. Do something.
And it's fun. It really is fun.
Well, it is. You're outside. You're in
Yes.
the air.
Outside,
you're,
right, yeah.
You know what?
Chatting.
So we've done our biggest events have been in the winter, in the cold. And
Interesting.
people think that, oh, it's the winter, there's nothing I can do. It's the best time. You're not fighting with mosquitoes and bugs, and it's not so hot. And I mean, just, put on that winter coat and go out in the woods and sweat a little and meet some friends and you'll sleep better.
Nothing wrong with that, but 741 trees. Mm-hmm. What and what defines a saved? Is that just that you've worked on them and you've cut the ivy off?
Yeah.
And that
gives them-
batch of ivy will die. It doesn't mean there's not maintenance.
Sure.
But a lot of these trees took several years to get into the condition that they're in. So this buys them many more years.
Right.
I wonder if it's like, with these big bald patches, for lack of a better word, around the bases of these trees, they should become, in the future, as the ivy is possibly growing back, a little bit more noticeable.
Exactly.
Sort of like that, like that reverse mohawk in the hair or something like that. It's like, why is that
And we do
bald
go
spot?
back. We go back. One of the nice things about the ribbon is we go back as a team, or smaller, just the group of 6 of us will go back every once in a while and check to make sure that when we tied a ribbon around a tree, it was a thorough job, that, there's nothing else
Right.
coming back already, because ivy is amazing in its ability to come back quickly.
Do you have
so-
a map of where all your trees are? Or locations?
No, that's
or
a
not
great
yet?
idea, though.
But it's, one of the things that we've been struggling with is we really want to, as we say, be the ripple. And so we want people to do this all over the place. But part of it is, and then count those trees that they report back to us. But the reporting element of that is a little tough.
I get that. I mean, you're asking people to take care of the trees, and then more steps and more steps and more steps. And I get the need for the data. I mean, you certainly need to know how successful it is. But I mean,
Well, we know how many trees we've actively been involved cutting with our volunteers at events.
Right.
And that we're comfortable to report.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But you also asked us, what else have we done? I think even on an equal level of importance is we have influenced whole communities now. We have a number of communities we've been asked to come and speak with, to share with them. We want to duplicate now within these communities but we'll work with them initially to show them how to set up an event that they can then carry on themselves.
Okay, so you guys, that's the education
Yeah,
part
exactly.
of your 3 prongs. So you are actually going out into homeowners associations and maybe the yacht club, but or what?
We're going to be speaking before the Rotary
At the yacht club.
at the yacht club in a month.
2 birds with
There
one
we
stone.
go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're also meeting with the initial Greenscape meeting, which you probably are aware of. And so we'll be talking to them and encouraging people who are going to do projects in the city to consider removal of ivy as part of their project.
Yeah, and we did a presentation to the Eastport Civic Association. They were very interested in this. We had an event there at Jones Cove for ivy removal.
Well, I know that Eastport's got a number of little
They do.
splinter groups that are great. I mean, I know the Neat Streets Initiative with
Exactly.
Bumper Moyer
Bumpers, yeah.
just does all sorts of great things.
They do.
And again, that's what I love to see, is when a community comes together for the community. I mean, it's not. Yes, they could turn around and squawk at the city and say, I want the curb painted, But what's it to me for a gallon of red paint and a half hour with 3 friends, and then we go get a drink?
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
I mean, there are a couple of things that we've been approached on, which I hope we get an opportunity to speak with you again, because I don't think we can really talk about it today. I don't know, because nothing has been firmed up. But we've had major organizations find us now and ask us to come and do work on their properties. So,
nice.
I mean, it makes my head explode at how quickly people are responding to us.
Are you a nonprofit? Not yet?
No.
Not yet.
We're working on that, and we're trying to come up with some creative ways, one of which we think may work, to have a fiscal agent who, rather than go through all the paperwork and legal requirements
Right.
to become one, we would maybe become part of
another.
Yeah.
And I think there's, as I started, I said, there's a zillion and one organizations
Yeah,
Yeah.
that do some overlap that it makes sense, and that you could become an initiative of the, whatever it may be.
And we do want to remain our own initiative, but we definitely want to partner where we can. What we don't want to do is get bogged down in paperwork and
administrative tasks.
Administrative things, and so that's why we're deciding to take a different route.
Much rather be at K&B True Value picking up a new set of
Our
shears
new
or
set of
shears.
We'd rather be out cutting the ivy.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me.
And I don't know if you've given this, we didn't really provide the time frame, but this all started last April. So
we're less
than a year in,
Yeah.
3/4 of a year.
741 trees in less than a year.
Yeah.
With 100 people, you said, volunteer.
Over 100
on the
volunteers
list.
have actually volunteered.
So that somebody has gone out one time with a
Yes.
snipper in their hand.
That's where the list comes from. And a
Well
lot
done.
of that, a lot of that came from next door. I want to give a real shout out to next door. A lot of it came from there.
Well done.
And then we think there's probably a bunch of other trees that have been done and not reported.
You just don't know, sure.
Which is fine with us.
Yeah.
But
Save a
if
tree
you
wherever.
apply for grants, they want to know how effective you are. So
Sure. What's the best way to support Save Our Trees?
Well, I would say come to an event and cut some ivy, number one.
Okay.
Number two, give us an opportunity to educate your community. And number three, reach out to your local government, state government, and county government, and let them know that this is important to you.
Your work basically now is on public property and
we
by
have-
invite.
and we have
And by
permission
invite.
with the city too.
Yeah, we have a great, great, great relationship with the City of Annapolis. They have been unbelievably responsive to us.
These administrations, and
Yeah.
I, both, from, and I've been here through, I guess Callahan was first, but I mean, through, where I was actively involved, but through Ellen and through Josh and through Mike and through Gavin and Republican, Democrat, whatever, they've all been very, very supportive on the environment.
Everybody loves their community. When you get local with your politics, it's very different. Everybody loves our community here and all aspects of it. I've never found there to be a political win or lose on that.
And
You said make sure you get in your community involved. Find out, have you come out to speak to their community. And I might suggest that the community is not necessarily isolated to where you live. You've got,
yeah, that's very
you've
true.
got your church community. You've
Yeah.
got you mentioned the Rotaries. You've got, the different organizations that people maybe belong to. As you said, Susan, everybody loves a tree. And to be able to get the eyeballs in front of that message is critical. SaveOurTreesTogether.org is the website, and is that you've got contact information and everything else right on
Yeah,
there?
there's an email address in there too.
yeah. And the other kind of interesting, talking about communities, like you had mentioned, different people come to our different events, kind of depending on where they are. We had an event sponsored by the Friends of Quiet Waters Park
Okay.
and the Rangers there on Sunday from 2 to 4. And we just thought this is going to be really hard work because the vine's in this one area that we wanted to work on. So we didn't advertise it very broadly. And we had 19 volunteers show up on a Sunday afternoon. And but it wasn't people that I had ever met before. They were all new from different ways of hearing about us and loving the park and knowing that this work needed to be done. It was just really gratifying, and it was just a really fun afternoon.
Well, and Quiet Waters is a gem
Yeah.
for Anne Arundel County.
It
and
is.
That has been for 30 years. 30 years now, I think it is.
Yeah.
That Joe Barson did the design, and when they did, and I think certainly with the bit of news they've been in recently, it's sort of come to the foresight about how beautiful, how
Special it is.
how special the place is, and not getting into whether that was right or wrong, but it's people are aware of it and they're very protective of it,
That's true.
which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And for the rare person who isn't that keen on trees, and I know several who it's like, "Ugh, it's so messy," but for those people, even if you have a tree in your yard and it's covered with ivy, think of the liability to your house, because at some point that tree is going to fall over, and or hurt someone or your things, your home. You know, I know someone
Right,
who
your
had
your
a tulip
house fall.
poplar come into their house onto the roof.
And this is how simple it is. The other day I was driving and I went into a neighborhood that I'm not terribly familiar with, and I saw this big giant tree in this backyard covered in ivy. And I stopped and pulled over and got out my phone, and I started to take a picture of it, and then I saw this lady getting in her car. And I thought, oh, I'm going to check with her first. And so I went over and I said, excuse me, my name is Susan Wheatley. I'm with Save Our Trees. And did you know that the ivy is detrimental to your tree there? I'm part of an organization that's... And she said, I had no idea. And then she said, and I said, well, I've noticed a lot of them, you know, in this community, but which they're in every community.
Sure.
I'm not singling out this community. But anyway, and she said, I've got lots of cousins and family that lives here. Can I get them together and will you come and teach us? I mean, that's how easy it is.
And then you've got a group of 10 or 12 that
Yeah.
can spread the gospel.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for, because we recognize very quickly with all these people saying, can you come help us? Can you come help us? That 6 of us can't be everywhere, and we can't cut every tree, you know, free of ivy, but we can train other people to be interested and involved and do it in their own neighborhoods.
Sure, train the trainer. And it doesn't sound like it's overly complicated.
No.
No, it's not.
But I do want to give a shout out to one of our other members. We're so proud of this, we can't stand it. Very early on in our journey here, we were invited.
Which is only 9 months ago.
Which is only 9 months ago.
We were invited to submit one of our members to help me get the name right.
The Environmental
Environmental
Commission.
The
Annapolis.
Annapolis Environmental Commission. And we're going to be going to an event at the end of this month where one of our 6 founding members is going to be sworn in as their
Named
newest
into the-
member.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now you've got a voice on the Environmental Commission.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're very proud of that.
That's mostly what we want is a voice, because once people hear it, a lot of them listen.
SaveOurTreesTogether.org is the website. Check it out. This is a simple thing that we can do to truly save our trees. I mean, this is not a lay down in the bulldozer path or anything like that. I mean, it's a whole different argument, but this is something you can do in your backyard. This is something you can do with neighbors or friends. And if anybody has any kind of a community, whether they live in it or whether they attend it with trees and you care about them, SaveOurTreesTogether.org is where you want to go. And SaveOurTreesTogether@gmail.com would be an email to get to it. And know when I'm leaving here, I'm going to be looking at all the trees and see what it is. I'm not going to be able to unsee it, I'm sure. And a real simple, easy way to take care of it and to make sure that the canopies that we do have will continue to grow and flourish and not be strangled out. Thank you guys so much for your time today, and thanks for arranging this room back here at 49 West. Yeah. And sounds like you're in with the mayor and Brian and stuff, so you got a little bit of an in, so that's okay.
And thanks for having us.
Yeah,
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Getting the word out.
Thanks for listening to this week's Local Business Spotlight. Please make sure to visit eyeonannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinion. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you all the day's local news direct to your phone, tablet, or computer in about 10 minutes. It comes to you at 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.